Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Sky F1 Vodcast. And it is the morning after, the night before, and that second of the virtual Grand Prix, the one that we should have been in Vietnam. That was the Vietnam Virtual Grand Prix, but of course they were racing around Albert Park. And I have been joined by 3 men who were in the race last night, some to differing levels of success. It's a warm welcome to Johnny Herbert, to Alex Albon, the Red Bull driver, and his Red Bull teammate, and England cricketing legend Ben Stokes, who made his debut. Ben, it's fantastic to have you with us. How was it for you? I think first question.
Well, the experience as a whole was great. I'm not going to lie. After the break, I was in a bit of a huff because I came dead last. So,
yeah, thanks for that, Ben.
Yeah, if you look at your start, let's focus on the positives for a start. You started and went from 18th to 12th and overtook. I think you even overtook your teammate, didn't you? That must have been a nice moment.
Yeah, we won't mention that he crashed, and that's the only reason why I overtook him. But
he was still on track.
Yeah, exactly. Ben, but was he much help, Alex? Did he help you out? Make you go faster?
Yeah, he gave me a few tips throughout the week because honestly, I've only really showed any interest in F1 in the last year, so I didn't know that much about it. I thought it was just get in the car and drive and see how fast you can go. But there's much.
That is the idea.
Yeah. There's so much thought that's got to go into it, and after doing it for a week, got a lot more respect for what you guys have to do. It's incredible.
Tell me about the adrenaline. Can you tell me about the adrenaline levels? A few people have been asking. Yeah, were you more nervous before the start of that race than you were the World Cup final super over?
Oh, 100%. I was massively outside of my comfort zone doing something like this. It took me about 5 minutes to ease into the race properly, I reckon, in terms of the nerves and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Charles was saying that there was sweat dripping off him, and this was from a race winner and a seasoned professional. But yeah, I just wonder what it's like. Is it when you're going up against these guys, you're thinking, oh, you've got to pull out your best, haven't you? I mean, otherwise, I thought you did pretty well from the way it started, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously I had to take into consideration who I was racing against. But, the sportsman in me, I was like, oh, it'd be great not to finish last, maybe first. No, that was only a joke. But yeah, I was obviously good to finish last, but, in hindsight, you got to look back at who I was racing against. These guys know what they're doing. But it was great fun.
Yeah. What about the banter, Ben? When we were in that sort of in the lobby and there was Charles Leclerc in there was Alex Albon. It was brilliant, wasn't it? What did you feel when you were racing?
Yeah. Well, even the couple of nights practice we did before when everyone was in, it was like I would compare it to a kindergarten. It was just sort of just Johnny, you were just constantly laughing the whole time, running people off the track, which I thought was very amusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was cool. It was so cool to be a part of.
Yeah.
Alex, what sort of tips can you give Ben, and how does it compare to normal racing?
Yeah, it's strange. It felt like at the beginning anyway, it was quite hard to firstly just let Ben get up to speed by himself, I think, because obviously he was with a controller to begin with. I think that's how you first started, right, Ben?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you moved to like a proper steering wheel and pedals. And it was just trying to get up to speed, because actually in the game itself, there are so many little tricks with tire temperatures, engine temperatures, fuel mixes. And I was trying to tell Ben how to basically understand that. And even me, I didn't really understand it either. So we were kind of learning together. And I was asking the Red Bull esports guys what to do. And even 2 minutes before the race, I was asking Charles what lap he was going to pit, because I had no idea what to do. But we'll be more prepared next time. But yeah, it was good fun. And how much off were you, Ben, in qualifying? You weren't far away. It was 2.5 seconds.
My best was 1:23.5 in qualifying.
Yeah? It's not so pretty much same time as Johnny, right?
Great. Funny. I did a 21.9. That's way off the pace.
I'll tell you what they were saying. So Anthony, they've been putting their excuses in our boys, Ben, Alex. They were saying, because obviously it was a disappointing effort from the Sky F1 team last night. Johnny was saying he was never up to pace. He freely admitted it. But Anthony last night on our WhatsApp group was going, yeah, I had some internet lag. What does that even mean, internet lag? But anyway, he said he was way off the pace. How many hours did you boys put in practicing from the moment you got the sim?
Shamefully too many.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I couldn't spend more than an hour in the rig though. Just my back was just horrendous after sitting in it for too long.
Yeah, excuse me, Ben. Every time I logged in, you were on.
Yeah. When I say that, I was on for an hour, out for 5 minutes, back in for an hour.
Yeah, right. Hours. What about the race though, Ben? What was the toughest thing? I thought the concentration level you needed was so high. Do you feel the same?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to remember, like as I say, Alex was giving me some of the tips about the fuel and stuff like that, and remembering to change up to rich for the straights, changing back down for like the bendy bits, the windy bits even.
Yeah.
I forgot to do that most of the time as well because I was concentrating on just staying on the track. So I had a tactic with my tyres to go medium soft, but I started on soft, then went to medium, and then finished on medium again. So that just went completely.
Strategy calls. We're always getting them wrong. We can never predict them during the race. Can we? Anyway, Johnny, Ben, we all know about your training philosophy and how you work some of the hardest in the England cricket team. Can you take that into your driving then? Do you think for next time, are you going to work towards China? Do you want another go at this?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that was, as I say, it wasn't just the case of, turning up on the day and then giving it a go. There was put a lot of time and effort into it, which is, at the moment, that's sort of the most competitive thing I've had over the last couple of weeks against other people. Being in a sport where you're used to competing against other people all the time to nothing. This was sort of getting that competitive side back against other people, I guess. So.
But you should be in Sri Lanka, shouldn't you, right now?
No, we went back from Sri Lanka. Where would I be? I would meant to be in India actually at the moment.
Oh, right, okay. IPL stuff. It's non-stop for you. So actually, probably I should imagine you're enjoying a bit of time at home. This is one of the few benefits of this crisis is that you can get a bit of family time.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Obviously, we've got 2 kids as well. Who are wearing thin on me and my wife and my mother-in-law as well at the moment. But it's been so cool. My mother-in-law is a school teacher and so is my wife. So they put together like school routines throughout the day, Monday to Friday, and I'm PE teacher for 45 minutes a day. So we've gotten into a routine with them, which has been great. But spending so much time away from home normally, it has been really nice spending some time at home with everybody. Yeah. Although this last week I've hardly seen them because I've been practicing on the sim.
That's why we do these podcasts, just to escape into the office for a couple of hours and get away from homeschooling. Can I ask you a couple more? We see Stuart Broad. I've seen him at a couple of Grand Prix and at Abu Dhabi. Are there any of the other cricket lads, England cricket lads, petrol heads and F1 fans?
Yeah, I would say Stuart Broad and Owen Morgan are probably the 2 biggest out of the lads. But I know a few of them have been to the F1s, and since this F1 games came out, actually, there's been loads of guys playing on it on the PlayStation and Xbox and stuff. Brody's just ordered one of these rigs as well. I think it arrives at home for him today. So we've been firing out some tweets yesterday just to try and push me and him being in the next race, so then we can actually race against them.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully we'll get them involved as well. Then that would be the great.
I know, that would be ideal.
Yeah,
Johnny, you might get booted out. The way you're performing at the moment.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I did eventually, Ben. I have to say, you made me sweat buckets when I spun off about 3 times. I have one tip for you, Ben. When you do spin off, don't say anything like, "Oh, damn, I've gone off again," because then I knew I was going to be coming down on you and getting closer to you. That was the only thing that was helping me through the race.
Right.
Were you 2 battling, Johnny? Were you battling with Ben?
Well, I have one apology actually to Ben. Actually, when I did pass you, I did ram you into the wall, I think. At one point, which was a bit unfortunate.
Yeah. To be fair, it probably is true, but I don't remember you doing it.
I saw you actually, in practice, you were driving the wrong way around Albert Park there, weren't you, Ben? At one point, George was screaming.
I complete another lap in the qualifying, so I thought I'll just turn around and see what happens, and drove.
Smart.
I told it, sabotage.
Sabotage.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent, I suppose, of you going in and facing Ben in the nets. Is that something we could get you to do, Alex? I'm not sure how your cricket is.
No. Do you remember we did the cricket thing at Silverstone?
Yeah.
Last year. But I think it'll be. Can we use like a tennis ball or something a bit softer?
No. The real thing.
No, real thing.
Yeah.
No pads.
No.
No. Straight in.
No pads, just
No
straight
pads.
in.
Yeah, exactly. I remember seeing Piers Morgan face Brett Lee at one point.
Yeah.
I think he nearly got hit, didn't he? But there we go. Can I just, before you go, Ben, and I'll come back on to you, Alex, but, there's a few of us on the Sky F1 team who are massive cricket fans. Those bats on the wall behind you, are they some special things? Is that stump the one you took off after Headingley?
No, so hold on. This stump here,
Yeah.
that's we won the Ashes in 2015.
Okay.
This shirt is my debut shirt. I played my first game for England in that. Oh God, this is quite hard. That bat is a bat that I used in Headingley to start with, and then they're just my balls that I took my first international 5 wickets with.
Fantastic. I was going to ask you if you had to pick one. Here's the difficult one. I don't know if you ever get asked this: the Headingley innings or the World Cup final.
Yes, I do get asked that quite a lot.
Sorry, I'm boring like that.
No, that's fine. But honestly, I've always said I couldn't choose between the two. It's like choosing between a 6 and 2 threes. But the only difference is, I think between the two is that at the end of the World Cup, we had something to show for it, which was being world champions.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can echo that. It was an amazing journey that you went on last year. Just to bring it back across to Alex, the pressure is on these guys, as you now know, from just racing in the virtual side of things. But the pressure is on every time they get into a car. When your teammate is someone like Max Verstappen, and Alex, you're going up against the very best. How do you cope with pressure, Ben, in a cricketing environment? What advice would you give to Alex, who's at the start of his F1 career, to sort of harness that pressure, you know what I mean, and get the best out of yourself?
Well, look, I think when I first started out my international career, making the step up from first class cricket, obviously the big difference was the skill level of everyone else was a lot higher and a lot more consistent. And rather than sort of be, taken back by that, I obviously realised that's the level that I need to be at to compete, and then try to get better and better every time that I practiced or trained or whatever it was. And obviously there were some ups and downs along the road, but every down moment that I had, I felt like it made me a better player and opened my eyes up to, how the level that I needed to be at, and just trying to constantly improve.
The next step then, Alex, is to get him into a single-seater or maybe even a two-seater F1 car. Would you be up for that? Would you be up for taking Ben in?
Yeah, I was saying, especially we should head up to Red Bull Ring. We'll start off with the. I don't know if we should chuck Ben straight into the Formula 1 car.
Yeah, straight in.
Straight in. I think we'll build him up, so we'll go with Formula Renault maybe, and then we'll go straight to the Formula 1 car. But Ben's 6'2", he told me, so it will be a bit of a squeeze, but we'll get it. We'll make it work.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We'll just send him out. Same thing, right? No ABS, no traction control.
You can paint the racing line. Right.
You paint the racing line on the track. Yeah. Alex, did you have? I mean, you had no assists on. No one had any assists on yesterday, so you were doing it without a handicap.
No, I had assists.
Did you?
So I think it was split. So Charles's brother and Lundgaard had no ABS, and everyone else did, more or less. So not to say that it is quicker to run it without it, but I don't know if, Johnny, did you ever try it?
Yes, I did try. Well, I had to have it on because otherwise I'd be in the wall every single lap. It was the same thing for me as well.
Yeah, so
good.
I had to run it on. So I really want to do the next one. Are you gonna? I don't know if Ben, you sound down as well. Johnny, are you up for it?
We'll get more positivity there.
Yeah, good
Actually,
stuff.
during this conversation, Charles has texted the group chat to say that we're all going to get on it tonight as well.
There we go.
When you say get on it, you mean get on the sim.
Exactly.
Yeah,
not the.
Actually, you're not doing a lot of that.
We're racing drivers. We're not.
I know.
Yeah, it doesn't go away.
Exactly. Where's that cat of yours, Alex? Just before you go, is he still there?
Let me show you. Hang on.
You got what is? It's a strange cat. I like looking at it.
It's aggressive looking.
It's a Persian cat. His name's Amani. So we have 5 cats in this house, and there's Amani, Gucci, Prada, Hugo for Hugo Boss, and then we have Lucky, because we ran out of ideas.
You did. I think there is one idea I think you need to sort of think about at the moment. Is actually you need to paint your fence. Your fence is looking a bit ropey in the background.
Yeah, paint that.
Is this a gardening show?
You did a bit of that.
Is this a Formula 1 show or a gardening show?
I don't know. It can be anything, but we appreciate it. Finally, just on the subject of pets, my best man bought a dog yesterday, a puppy, and they called it Pablo Escobar. That's no word for it. There you go, I'll leave you with that one. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, and we hope we're going to see. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time in the Chinese E-Prix. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, I get the call.
That's it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And Alex, pleasure as always, mate. And we'll hopefully see you guys in a couple of wecs' time too. Thanks very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right, let's bring in Crofty and Rach to this chat. Were you listening into that, Crofty?
Yes.
I'm not going to lie to you. I get a bit starstruck with Ben and Alex and Johnny. Amazing. There we go. It's great to have him on, wasn't it?
I liked Alex's cats, by the way. And was his cats Gucci, Armani, Prada?
Yeah. Stop. You're not allowed to mention these things. This is
I was thinking I might go and get a couple of cats and call them TK Maxx and Lidl.
Yeah. Well, that would probably, I suppose that'd be more reflective. And what's that, by the way, on the wall behind you?
On behind me?
Yeah.
That's the sign.
Yeah.
I can't actually see myself, so I don't know if you can see the sign or not. My gorgeous other half bought me for the office at home a little moving in present, and it does say "Lights out" and away we go. I love it. Whatever you know.
Beautiful. We should all. I mean, I thought that was somebody else's catchphrase, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's yours now because it's written on your wall. It's your catchphrase now, isn't it?
Possession is 9/10 of the law. It's on my wall. It's mine.
Whereas Rach, you've got a Banksy. Is that a Banksy? What is that?
It's a Banksy canvas, of the rat. Yes.
Like Roland Rat.
Not Roland Rat.
All right, let's. What else has been going on, Rach? There's a fair bit that we've been catching up on. I know everybody's been speaking to various teams to see what's been going on. What can you tell us?
First of all, there's lots of haircuts, which I hope is coming your way very soon. But there is
nowhere near 250,000.
I'm sure we can do that.
Video as well as this, but we need 250,000 to get lasers to shave his head. But there are a lot of people at home bored, and they're shaving their heads. Interestingly enough. Secondly, this is really good. Ron Dennis has got together. It's an initiative called SaluteTheNHS.org. And it's going to provide high quality meals to NHS workers. It's a plan for 3 months. He's put £1 million into the initiative. It's also got the support of Tesco's, Absolute Taste, of course, which is the catering company connected with Ron, and Yodel as well. And they're going to give meals free of charge to NHS teams, anaesthetic teams, ICU teams, and A&E staff during their shift. Such a great initiative. £1 million gone into it. Yeah, definitely a round of applause. 3 months, and they're going to have 5-day food packages, these staff, which is just brilliant for them.
Yeah.
Also, I think the cost cap is coming up because the teams at the moment, we know that McLaren have furloughed staff and Carlos and Lando have taken that pay cut. Zach Brown wants the cost cap to be more aggressive. It's gone down. They've agreed on principle, the teams, to go from 175 million to 150 million. But I think Zach thinks it should be more aggressive than that. Lots of teams going to be struggling the longer we go without races because they're still obviously paying staff. They've still got all their overheads. So that, I think, is a discussion that's going to rumble on, lasers.
Yeah, I mean, it was 175 million US, 150 million US, as you said, had been agreed. And I think, as Zach was saying, he wants it to go down to 100 million because we don't want 2 to 4 teams, Crofty, disappearing as a result of this mess.
Well, absolutely. this situation calls for some unified and uniformed thinking, I think, across the board. And if there are a couple of teams that are objecting to trimming that cost cap even further, that's got to stop. Self-interest has to be put aside to protect the future of Formula One. And, you know, Zach Brown isn't going to make those claims just for the sake of it. This is not Zach trying to get a competitive advantage. It's him seeing the whole picture and the future of the sport. It's interesting that one team, one of the bigger teams, is all for a further reduction. We assume that's Mercedes. And Toto Wolff has been speaking, I think, to the Austrian newspapers today, saying that, you know, he's for further reduction in that cost cap, and his future at Mercedes, you know, is going to be put on hold whilst the current pandemic crisis takes centre stage. But yeah, Formula One's got to pull together here, and we all want, as fans of the sport, not just broadcasters, we want to see a Formula One that's healthy in the future, and that means keeping everybody together. You know, the wolf pack in the wild look after the weak, and if you look after the weak, everyone remains and retains a stronger wolf pack at the end of it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing, isn't it? I think overall, this will only benefit Formula One. Yeah, it's difficult times at the moment, but I think once we all get going again in our various sports, but especially Formula One, I think it will only make the entertainment better. There is proof out there that you can run on these lower budgets anyway.
Good, that was a good analogy. Have you been reading Call of the Wild there? The backdrop?
No, I've got Bob Dylan. Nobel Prize-winning speech, and the periodic table of heavy rock. So if you want to know about Guns N' Roses, I can tell you more.
Great, I'm on to about my 5th episode of Viz, or whatever it is. A lot of Viz. Yeah. Listen, the other thing we've got to talk about, and talking about wolf packs, that's actually quite a nice segue. Toto Wolff says he's staying in charge of Mercedes at the short term. He's moved to say that, you know, nothing to do with taking over as the top man at Aston Martin yet. But he was quoted as saying, and there have been a few things in the press and reports, Rachel, about, you know, falling out with the Daimler boss, Ola Kalanius. And he's been surprised by the change over the winter and the behaviour of individual people. It sounds like something's going on there. I know that in this time of sort of isolation, Chinese whispers can spread. But have you heard anything on that side of things, or just what you've been reading?
No, just the same as you and what we've been reading. But you would imagine that, I mean, we know what the situation in Australia, wasn't it? Where at one point Mercedes had said they wanted to go racing, and then they're the ones that swung it in the other way once their vote was cast actually against going racing and against going ahead with the weekend on the Friday. And that call, we believe, came from above. So who knows? But at the moment, in a situation like this, you would think that a team galvanises. So we've got to take it, the stuff that's coming out at the moment, unless we hear it from Toto as rumours, as those paddock rumours we always hear. But saying that he's not going to be taking over Aston Martin, we know they've got a really close relationship here, Toto and Lawrence Stroll, don't we? So you could see them wanting to work together at some point. I would imagine, Johnny, wouldn't you? Yeah,
I definitely would. And I think that relationship you talk about is very, very strong. And I think it's a great fit, to be perfectly honest, with what Racing Point, with what Aston Martin down the line, as the team will be called. They will want to have the best possible people. That's what Lawrence has done over the years with all the different brands that he's been involved with. Make it as strong as it possibly can, and that means management.
Yeah, I know they spent some time, or the rumours were they were spending some time, Toto Wolff and Lawrence Stroll, at his place in Mystique. So, you know, they're clearly in cahoots and they're good friends, aren't they? So we'll see what comes of that. The other thing to come out of Mercedes is that they believe that the 3-week shutdown might be extended to 6, and also they're ramping up the production of those continuous positive airway pressure machines to 10,000 a week. It was going to be 1,000 a day, but they have got that up and running so quickly.
They have lasers. I'll tell you, actually, they had 250 the first day they managed to produce, and they've moved that up already to 1,000 a day this week. So they're already up to 1,000 working this week on those, which is just brilliant news, because the sooner you can get those into people and stop them having to move on to where they need a ventilator, then the better. And it's so much better for the NHS staff not to have to intubate and put so many people on ventilators. They're building ventilators anyway, but if these can stop that next chain reaction happening, then it's incredible. And hats off to everybody who's working on this. I know it's not just Mercedes now as well. So it's a brilliant step forward. And yes, if they can get to that number, incredible, absolutely incredible.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's the bulk at HPP though, isn't it, Crofty? I think most of it's, you know.
It is. I was talking to Andy Cow this morning, the managing director at Brixworth HPP, and they've got a great facility there. and it's brilliant to see it being put to a wider use in the community. But Andy was very keen to stress it's not just his staff and everyone at HPP. Bob Bell, as well, has been very heavily involved with this. Bob has been in Formula One for many, many years. He said he's been really driving this forward as well. I think this is an F1 community project, and I know that there are other things going on within the community involving all the teams as well. And it's one of the things I love about this sport, where we go racing and everyone wants to, be the best on the track at all costs sometimes. But when there's a time of crisis or trouble, everybody pulls together in Formula One, and I just think it's brilliant what's happening.
Yeah, and the good thing about it as well is obviously how quickly Formula One teams are able to move. It's a mentality they have when they're going racing. So when this type of situation comes up, they're the perfect people to help get the things needed to the people out in the country.
It's important to point out as well, it's not just Mercedes high performance powertrains that are doing this. It is Project Pit Lane, and we know that there's manufacturing capability, particularly at Red Bull right now. They're producing this intermediate product, which is sort of halfway between what Mercedes are doing and what an actual ventilator is. So, and that's we're hoping to speak to Christian about that a little bit later in the week, and also have a word with Pat Simmons, who's a man that is coordinating all of that. Either way, look, we still doff our caps, and the fact that it's being mentioned almost daily, isn't it? All of what Project Pit Lane is doing in the Prime Minister's briefings, albeit he's incapacitated a little at the moment. It's being mentioned, and clearly everybody is so impressed by the top level engineering capabilities that we've got in this country right now. Okay, I'm going to move it on, if we could, to this week. So we did top 5 drivers of all time was last week. So this week, we're doing the top 5 drivers never to become world champion, because we were asking for your suggestions on Twitter, and at James Wharton. Well done. Thank you for this one. So this is the topic that he's come up with. I hope you guys were briefed. Were you briefed?
Yes.
You got, who wants to start? Go on, Rach. Ladies first. Who have you gone for?
So my number 1 has to be Sir Sterling Moss.
Okay. Well, he needs to be Sir Sterling. Yeah.
Right. So second 4 times, lost by point to Mike Hawthorne in 1958. 5 retirements and 1 DNS. That was in the Indy, when they included the Indy in the championship. And it was in the years when they only took the drivers' best 6 results, and he only had 5 results to put into that. Counted out of 11 races, still only lost by a single point. He's won 212 of 529 races he's competed in. He's just, the word legend is for Sir Sterling Moss. And I just really, really think we should put a world championship next to his name at some point. 1958 and a half, if you like. Second is Didier Pironi, when he lost to Keke Rosberg in 1982 by just 5 points and had that terrible, terrible crash that meant he couldn't race anymore. Enzo Ferrari thought enough of him to put a little special trophy by his hospital bed to say the true champion, 1982 world champion, because he thought so much of him. So I'm going to put Didier Pironi in there. Also, Rubens Barrichello, I'm going to have up there. 6 career points, 60 podium finishes. Crofty's rubbing his chin here. I'm not sure he likes that one. Teammates with Schumacher, though, so always playing second fiddle. So I'm going to have Rubens Barrichello in there. Most starts in F1, but I think Crofty will correct me if that stat's wrong. I'm going to have Gilles Villeneuve, of course, went up to Joe in 79. And my final one is maybe a little bit emotional, because obviously I got to interview him and work with him a lot, but I'm going to chuck Felipe Massa in there, because 2008, it just stays in everyone's memory, anyone who works in it now. And I would just like to have seen Felipe Massa win one for losing one by half a point. I've put him in there. That may be emotional, maybe heart over head, but I've got Massa in there.
It's a good list. There's not many you can argue with there. Crofty, you want to go?
Well, obviously, I've not been briefed and I've not prepared this at all.
Right. Well, before you start then, one thing.
What?
I do not want this to be as long as Ant's top 5 drivers list.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be here for about 20 minutes.
Right, Rachel's correct. Sir Sterling Moss. You have to have Sir Sterling Moss in there. Great stats, Rach, but you missed the most important one. 16 wins, more than anyone who's never won a world championship. Sterling Moss, top lad. Ronnie Peterson. How could you not mention Ronnie Peterson? 2nd in 71, 3rd in 73, often let down by reliability. Could he have won the championship in 78 had he sadly not succumbed to that tragic accident at Monza? Ronnie Peterson was just naturally quick. Johnny, you often remind me of Ronnie Peterson because
Put Herbert in. Put Herbert in.
Good looking.
Put Herbert in.
Yeah, well, no, because this is how I segue into Johnny Herbert, because Johnny was naturally quick. Peterson was naturally quick as well. Both liked a bit of sideways action, always good in my book. Gilles Villeneuve, of course. Jody Scheckter said about Gilles Villeneuve at his funeral, he was the fastest driver in the history of motor racing. It was a great quote from Jody this. He said that whilst Jody's preoccupation was keeping himself alive, for Gilles it was to be the fastest, every race, every lap, and if he came back tomorrow, he'd live his life the same way with the same love. And I really love that quote.
And funnily enough, actually, just to pick up on it, that when you're going with that story, Villeneuve-Peroni, that we did, was it last year or the year before? I mean, they almost drove themselves, didn't they, past the point of the edge. It was, incredible tale.
And if you've got any time at all just to kind of watch something, go back to the 1979 French Grand Prix, the greatest battle for second place ever, with René Arnoux. Amazing. Dan Gurney, I've put Dan Gurney in. So Dan Gurney, Jim Clark's funeral, Jim Clark's father took Dan Gurney aside and said, you know what, there was only one man that Jim really, truly feared on the track, and that was you, Dan Gurney. Had he not left Brabham the year before Sir Jack won the title, I think Gurney might have taken the title himself. First man to use a full face crash helmet in F1. The inventor of the Gurney flap as well, but more importantly, the first man ever to spray champagne on the podium. I want to put Dan Gurney into it. And here's my controversial one. Felipe Massa and Rubens Barrichello. Massa more than Barrichello, who was too happy to play number 2 for me. Yeah. But a man who shouldn't have been playing number 2 at McLaren, and that's David Coulthard. You don't win 13 Grand Prix if you're not a really good driver. Had he not have had to support Mika Häkkinen in 98, 99, things might have turned out a bit differently on that one. What was he? 3rd in the championship 4 times, runner-up in 2001. I'm going to put DC in on that one as well.
You might buy you a drink for that, a drink or two. So you might you'll be happy to hear that.
I'm sure he will. But my favourite, can I just do a David Coulthard story? He once launched this watch in Monaco, and Nick Heidfeld was at the launch as well. And Coulthard was talking about this watch, and Heidfeld said, "Yes, I can see why they've named it after you." And DC said, "What is that?" He said, "Well, it's grey and it's got a square face." I thought that was the best Nick Heidfeld line ever.
And that's your drink snatched away from you. JH, come on then.
Well, Sterling Moss, like everybody else, the man is an absolute legend. The way he went about his racing was very, very special. And it was just his ability to get the best out of the car up against people like Fangio in those sort of very early years of racing. So Sterling definitely for me. But the biggest man I think we never saw the best of was Gilles Villeneuve. That man was absolutely awesome. I know you guys mentioned that racing Dijon with René Arnoux. That's what he was all about. It was racing on the edge. It was pushing those boundaries and those limits. That's something that Enzo Ferrari saw in him. So Gilles Villeneuve is definitely right at the top there. Man, you haven't mentioned Francois Cervert.
Oh, gorgeous, wasn't he?
Oh, he was.
Wasn't he gorgeous?
What a good-looking chap he was. Yeah, very sad that we never again saw the best of him. He was a star in the making. Mentally, probably the toughest driver, I think even Jackie Stewart has said, that he came up against. And I think that is something that shows the might of the man. So Francois definitely there. And I will go with Ronnie Peterson because, again, that guy was brilliant in all forms of racing that he did prior to Formula One. Racing, I remember in that March in those early 70s days and getting absolutely the best out of that car. Mentally, very, very strong. And it was very sad in those sort of latter years at the JPS at Lotus where it didn't really work for him because the focus in those days was for Mario Andretti. And then, of course, we had that horrible crash that he had in Monza where we lost him. And the last one for me, Felipe Massa. That year where basically in Singapore where the pit stop went all a bit doolally for him. And that really hampered that championship that may have come his way for those very few seconds in Brazil when the family were going absolutely berserk, not knowing that Lewis did that pass on the last lap, which gave him that championship. So Felipe, I have to say, was a driver that was on the very edge and was very, very exciting to watch as well.
Brilliant. I think there's absolutely no doubt, isn't there, that the two that are going to be on everybody's list, I guarantee it, are going to be Sterling Moss and Gilles Villeneuve. We'll just see those other three fill up as we work our way around the team for this second week of the Sky F1 Vodcast. Please do keep your questions coming in. Hashtag Ask Sky F1. That's it, isn't it? Yeah. Hashtag Ask Sky F1. Is Ask Crofty still live? Because now we're going head to head with you like we did with Ask Nico. You should probably bin that off for a bit.
Ask Crofty never dies. Never dies.
It never
will.
It will never die. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Johnny. You keep practicing.
Yeah.
See you.
Help.
See you Rach, wonderful to have you on. Thank you. And we'll hopefully get you back on very soon. And you, Crofty, well done.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you too.
Just one more thing before I go. Apparently, there is no time limit on those 250,000 viewers to get your head shaved. And looking at that quiff that's emerging above the receding hairline.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Like that. It is, yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. And a big thanks, of course, to Alex and to Ben Stokes. Thoroughly enjoyable to talk to that England cricket legend. There we go. I really enjoyed that, and to Alex too. Thank you, everybody. We will see you on Wednesday for another of these. From the moment, bye-bye.